everyone! Today we're going to see the difference between broadcast, custom expressions, and custom instructions. First, we will look at broadcast. You can find them in the Event tab. You will need the Receive block and the Broadcast block. They work in pair. When the Broadcast block will be triggered, it will trigger all the Receive block with the same name. Here I'm calling it Rocket in Orbit. Of course, in a real program you would have some code actually testing if the rocket is in orbit, but this is just for testing purpose. As soon as the rocket is in orbit, what I want to do is display we are in orbit, plus the time since launch. To do that, I'm going to use the join block. It joins text or variables into one string. Then, I could just use the time since launch block from the Craft Information tab. But instead of placing this block in the join instruction, I'm going to use data. Data is a variable that is set to whatever is after the broadcast block. For me, this is where I'm going to put the time since launch block. What's happening is that I'm broadcasting rocket in orbit with the data time since launch, and the receiver will be triggered with the data time since launch. You can use this variable as much as you want in any blocks connected under the receiver. I'm just going to add a wait block and we're going to test this program. Here it shows 3, so that means it's working. You might wonder what's the difference between broadcast and broadcast to craft. To see that, we're going to add a flight program to any other part beside the command pod. You can just click Create Flight Program in the Tinker panel. This program will be very simple. We will just broadcast test 1 and broadcast test 2 to craft. Now I'm going to add a flight program to the command pod. When it's going to receive test 1, it's going to log test 1. And when it's going to receive test 2, it's going to log test 2. It's as simple as that. Now let's see what happens when I open the logs. I only see test 2. That's because test 2 was broadcasted to all the craft and all the parts in the craft, and test 1 was only broadcasted to the fuel tank. Now let's talk about custom expressions. Just open the tab and click Create Custom Expression and name it. I'm gonna create a meter to feet block for the poor ones who don't know the metric system. You have multiple options to add text or parameters. I'm just going to add one parameter, which I'm going to call var. You could add more or just click Create. A pink block will appear in the middle of your screen. If you delete this one, it will completely delete your expression. A second block will appear in the tab. This one you can use and delete as much as you want. All the parameters you added will appear as yellow blocks. These will act just as the data block we saw earlier. I will multiply var by 3.2, which will convert meters into feet. I'm now going to take the second block from the Custom Expression tab. Custom expressions work like a math function. You have an input and an output. Saying meter to feet of var returns var times 3.2 is the same as saying f of x returns x times 3.2. Here, I made an infinite loop. I'm going to display altitude, but in feet. Now, let's test it. As you can see, the altitude is 6 meters, but it's displaying 20, which means it's in feet. Now, let's dive in the custom instructions. As always, just click the Create button and give it a name. Here, just as the custom expressions, you can add text or parameters, but I won't need any, so I'm just going to click Create. As you can see, the structure of the custom instructions is pretty much the same as the custom expressions. There's now a pink block on your screen. If you delete this one, it will delete the instruction. There's also a gray block in your tab. This one you can use as much as you want. As for the custom expressions, the gray block will trigger the pink block. The difference is that it won't return a value, but it will execute some code. When you're creating a program that's supposed to work on many rockets, you might not know how many times you have to stage to get to the next engine, because some people might stage the interstage and the engine at the same time, and some people might not. Or you could have the fairing separating in between. So this is my solution. Each time I will have the gray block staged to next engine in my program, it's going to trigger the pink block. And as long as the stage is not capable of producing any thrust, it's going to activate the next stage. But now you might wonder what's the difference between broadcast and custom instructions. In the two programs, it's going to log start test, then broadcast test 1 or trigger test 2, and then log a combination of end test plus the time since launch. When it's going to receive test 1, it's going to wait data seconds, here 5 seconds. It's the same when test 2 will be triggered. It's going to wait test duration, which is 5 in this case. The difference is that the broadcast block doesn't care about who receives the message. It's just going to broadcast it and go on with the program. While the custom instruction will wait until all the instructions are done before going to the code. Now let's go and see what it does. As you can see, the test 1 and 2 started, but the test 1 ended after 0 seconds, when the test 2 ended after 5 seconds. That's because the code waited for all the instructions to be done. And that's it for today. If you want to learn more about Vizzy, don't miss the next tutorials. I'll see you in the next one.